Hello and welcome back. So far we learned about Intune profile creation for Windows 10 and later operating systems. Now let's jump into Windows 8.1 and later operating systems. When you choose 8.1 and later, you would be getting very limited settings, which are profile types. Let's start creating. You can point to Microsoft Intune and then go to device configuration, click on profile and click on create profile and give a meaningful name and choose the platform as Windows 8.1 and later. Let's give it meaningful name, description, and then I can choose here configuration related to a profile type. In this case, I have here almost 5 different settings. One would be the Wi-Fi import, which are the settings you can import directly from the Wi-Fi profile in a XML format from one of the test machine. Or you can configure settings for the VPN related, very similar to the settings what we have done on Windows 10, but you don't have much configuration here. Like when you look at here, the enterprise VPN option is not available. It's just the base VPN configuration. So if you want to configure, you can simply enter the name of the connection name and give the description and the IP address or the FQDN of your VPN server name, and you want to connect as a default server. If you have the multiple servers, you can click on add, and adding more than one would give you more redundancy of VPN connections, if at all, if you have the VPN server configuration. And you can also configure here custom XML files if you have one of the connection like F5 access or maybe checkpoint or SonicWall file or mobile connect. All that can be configured from the VPNs. Similar settings here also for the proxy. If you have the multiple proxy configuration like a pack file, you can give that pack file, or you can give the if you want to enable automatic detect, or you want to bypass that configuration also can be done, or you can give just the IP address of your proxy server and then the port number. This also works. This way you can configure for the VPN proxy related settings. Let's go back to other settings. When you look at the other settings, like you have the cluster certificates, this is very similar to the cluster certificate setting what we have seen in Windows 10 and later devices configuration profile. If you have the certificate already CR file, simply import that certificate so that it can be imported to the machines. And if you choose as the computer, if you choose as the user certificate store, it can be go to the user store. But if you look at here, intermediate and the root certificates is the major difference here. So what kind of certificate you are trying to import, you must know, and then only you can import that specific certificate here properly. Otherwise it may lead to the confusion for the certificate, and it may lead to other problems when it is trying to utilize the certificate. Let's jump into other settings. Now here you can configure here device restrictions. This device restrictions, almost you have the 5 different settings, like normal settings for the device. For example, you want to block all the telemetry data, you can simply block it by configuring this. If you can look at it, the shared users data is nothing but telemetry data. If you want to block it, you can block it firewall, whether it is required to be on state. And UAC is here you have the notification information, like you want to notify or you want to block it completely, no notifications. All that can be configured from the specific settings. Now let's jump into the password section for this category. Here the required password type is alphanumerical or numerical or not configured. When you say not configured, it's not going to affect any of the policies, but if you configure as alphanumerical, then it's going to be asking you how many of the lower and uppercase passwords are required, or do you also want to include your passwords for the more security purpose, including the special characters. If that's the case, the minimum length of the password is 8 characters, for example, if I set it, and the number of login failures attempt will be wiping up the entire device. Maybe if I configure a 5 or 3, whatever the setting, if I as per my design, if I configure this, give some number, it's going to wipe up that entire device after 3 consequent failures of lock-ons. And similarly, the maximum minutes of the inactivity until the screen locks, you can configure here up to maybe 5 minutes or 1 hour, but people will normally go for 3 to 5 minutes between time. And password expansion, the number of days would be 45 days or 30 days. After that, the password has to be re-changed. That configuration can be configured here. And prevent reuse of previous passwords. The password history, this is nothing but you want to block it between the passwords not to be repeated the password from the last 5 passwords. That kind of setting can be configured, and picture password also can be configured. If you also, the encryption related configuration also can be done. Coming back to the browser settings, if I go to the browser settings, here I have the very limited configuration comparatively, whereas for the Windows 10 I do have for IE as well as Edge specific settings for there. But now here you can configure just the browser settings, like autofill is enabled or disabled, or fraud warning, small screen, allow JavaScripts to be enabled, block, or pop-ups to be blocked up, or do not track headers and plugins. Do you want to allow the plugins to be installed? Such configuration can be done here, and the internet security level and intranet security level, whether you want to configure as a high, medium, low, such kind of configuration can be done. Also, trusted site security level. These are three of the security settings. Most of the companies, they use it for their securing their browser configurations. Similarly, high security for restrictive and enterprise mode menu access. All these kind of settings can be configured. Also, logging report URL also can be here given. The required URL can be given here, and enterprise mode sites list of location can be given as an XML file format for only desktops only. Once you configure, you can go back to the cellular settings, whether you want to allow the data roaming over the cellular devices, you can configure here, or the block. And similarly, storage account, do you want to configure Windows Mail app without the Microsoft account or any of the account? If you can remember these settings related to the Windows 10, when we looked at it was asking for us to add Microsoft account or non-Microsoft account to be added or not, but here very limited settings if you can look at, because since this is for Windows 8.1 and later, they are very limited. So be specific to configure. If it is a Windows 10 devices, go and take as Windows 10 and later, and if it is just for the Windows 8 and 8.1 or 8.1, then you can take it. I hope you know 8.1 also coming soon for the expiration, so nobody uses 8.1 soon. That's how you can configure these settings. And let me jump into the other section for the last one would be the SEP certificate. SEP certificate is nothing but simple certificate enrollment protocol, and this certificate, if you have the information, you can fill those certificate information like all these values, then the certificate will be available and it can be enrolled for those devices once you create it, and you can assign for the required devices. All that kind of configurations can be configured and can be assigned for the different AD security groups or Azure AD security groups. Thank you for watching this. I will catch you in the next lecture.